right, welcome back, and thank you for joining us, in case you're just joining us, and thank you for staying with us. If we began the show with you, we are discussing the cyberspace this morning, looking at the opportunities and the threats, and also just borrowing from some of the incidents that we have reported in the country in the past few days. And I'm having in studio a panel of three, and also joining us online from Malindi is Al Kag. Al is the Executive Director of Open Institute, is coming to us live via Zoom from Malindi. In studio, I'm having a lady and two gentlemen. I'm having Cyril Chege. He's the co-founder of Chapter Global, and of course an interesting project that he runs that sort of centers around just empowering the young people with skills, technical skills when it comes to IT. And of course we also have in studio Brensil Kaimba, Cyber Security Manager, PwC, and Abdullahi Sheikh, CEO, Convergence. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for creating time also. And just to pave way for the, the other point that I wanted us to talk about before we get into the general space for the user on the ground to know how safe they can stay online. There was this interesting development, Cyril, that happened a few days ago, also that, the Worldcoin sort of made us forget that a few days before that, we had another trending topic about an allegation, I'll call it that, because nobody has come out to admit that their systems were hacked. We are talking about several key financial institutions. We are talking about the government platform, e-Citizen. The government has been categorical that it was not hacked. We are talking about quite a number of institutions that, there were allegations of hacking. We do not know whether it was a hacking or not, but what we know as Kenyans is that services were paralyzed for several hours. Tell us a bit about what you read from, such incidents and the vulnerability probably of some of our systems.
For sure.
What is it that we should be concerned about?
Cool. I know Brensil can tell us more about cybersecurity in that front. But from the allegations we had about the hacking, and I'll say hacking in quotes here, it felt like it was more of a denial of service attack, where they were sending so many requests to government servers, which was able to deny people access to some of these services, with the citizen being the one that was highly compromised. During a denial of service attack, it does not necessarily mean that your data was breached in that sort of scenario. You just have people who are sending so many requests that normal people cannot go ahead and access these particular servers. Now, I know this is usually a very hard thing to stop. We've seen big companies, examples, Amazon Web Services, GitHub, they've gone through a pretty much world-level DDoS attacks, if I was to call it that, in that sort of sense. And the only thing that can make it different for you in such a scenario, particularly when you have a critical service like e-Citizen, is having a clear mitigation protocol, or probably outsourcing some of these tasks. GitHub by itself, for some of us who are developers, we use it a lot. It's a developer platform for most of us, right? Even as a developer platform, where you'd think they'd have the best systems all through, they've still outsourced denial of service mitigation to external companies that can at least detect this, and they've had the biggest case so far recorded. They were able to mitigate it in 6 minutes. I know we had service down for a whole day in that sort of scenario, and I think it's just a learning point. And even the next day as well, right? Some systems still down. And I think it's just up to us to understand that the moment we digitize things, right, we definitely need to do this because of efficiency. It still presents some threat to us in regards to cyber attacks, and it could be a denial of service, it could be people trying to access data. Just have clear mitigation processes, because you already know what type of attacks you're going to expect, right? In that sort of sense, we have experts out there, we have companies that contract these sort of things. You don't have to have your entire team internally, and the moment you have a clear protocol for that, it makes it easy, because it's going to happen, to at least mitigate it in time. It's very sad to find financial institutions down for a whole day. I think if you're able to use the GitHub model or even the Amazon model in regards to how they work with these things, it might actually help us all through, and it's not out of the world to do it. It's just about having clear preparation.
Brensil, was it a hack?
That's an interesting question.
I know, I feel a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But
from a cybersecurity
what's your analysis of what happened?
Yeah, from a cybersecurity perspective, there are certain things that constitute an attack. So any loss of confidentiality, meaning someone has accessed your records or your details without your permission, any loss of integrity. So someone has gone and changed your bank balances, or even accessed your Facebook account, or availability. Whenever your systems are not available to do what they need to do, all those things, CIA, we consider that a cyber attack. So in this particular case, because we were not able to access one of our most critical national systems, the e-citizen platform, yes, then in that particular case, that was a cyber attack. And like he has said, some of these attacks, like what the denial of service attack, basically if one person, I'm sending you a request every other 2 seconds, that would be a nuisance to you, right? Yeah. And the best you can do is to block me. It's easy to block me if I'm one person. What we are seeing with a distributed denial of service attack, it's not one person where you can just block. It's multiple people and thousands of systems. And in particular cases, and what I think in this particular case could have happened, is you now have multiple of thousands of systems targeting one platform. So that's why in this particular case, where it's a distributed denial of service, it's really hard for you to say you are 100% covered, because then you have multiple of people trying to compromise or trying to gain access into your system, and which then brings it down. So like he has said, I think it then helps to have the mitigating strategies in place so that if it happens, you're either able to come back up very fast, or you're able to do or to have an alternative portal or platform where people can still gain access to the services.
All right. Abdullahi, what is unique about certain institutions or certain people that would make them a target for such kind of cyber attacks? I want you to take us into what really happens so that we can know why certain people are targeted for these attacks, as we learn just the basics on how to stay safe.
Absolutely. And before I go to that, with your permission, I want to categorically say it was not a hack.
It was not a hack?
It was not a hack. It was an attack.
We're still not sure what it was. Can we overlook it?
As Convergence, we do this. This is our bread and butter. In the entire region, we take care of the financial services. These two terms are interchangeable, but there are nuanced differences. Hack is access to data. There's been no access to data. And this is the new accepted terminologies. There's evolution of these terms and evolution of technology. Denial of service is a nuisance. Does it take one of the key factors, which is availability, away? Absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm. But which one is more severe? Access to the data itself. Mm-hmm. So there's been no access to data. And even the more severe one, not only do you get access to the data, but you're able to ransom it, mm-hmm. and make it inaccessible.
But then this thing of trying to make it sound as if it was not a problem, all is good, it was just a DDoS.
I was coming to that.
Can we overlook it?
And I'm actually coming to that.
So institutions to undergo this sort of attack almost at the same time, within the same day.
Absolutely.
Is it a mere coincidence?
So was there a PR nightmare? Absolutely. Was it intentional for there to create a PR nightmare? Absolutely. It's called hacktivism. Mm-hmm. Okay? It is a combination of hacking technologies or attack skills to deny a service to create an activist message. And it's not a new thing, whether it's for social reasons or political reasons. Could there have been something done to avoid it? Absolutely. Technologies exist. The first DDoS, and the reason I'm saying this is it's not a hack, is the first DDoS actually, or DOS happened in 1996. So it's really not new. And really, anybody, any cyber professional or hacker that knows what they're doing will have done much more damage if they had. So this was fairly rudimentary, fairly unskilled, just to send a message, because the tools and the skills exist and is ubiquitous, easily available online.
Okay, I'm coming back to you to respond to the other side of my question,
yes.
But I just want to know, Al, from where you are, which side of the coin are you on? Is it something that you think we can overlook? No problem, it was just a DDoS and nothing to worry about. Let's move on, should we?
I don't think a DDoS is nothing to worry about, because even if the action was stopped, just happened to stop e-citizen for 1 hour, the loss to the country is immense. The number of businesses that could not be set up, the number of people who couldn't get their licenses and various services of government, that is a serious attack, and it is something that should be held in that context. I think that there are two things that I would say about this. Number one, government services are the number one. A lot of hackers basically try to hack, not even for malicious purposes, but just to be able to hold their collar up and say that, yeah, I did this. And that's why you'll find that they'll put their brand name and claim credit for what they had done. Now, even if that is the case, government is the number one recipient of such attacks because of the fact that they're supposed to be the most absolutely secure people. After that, it is banks and people like M-Pesa, and then after that is the rest of us. Now, if a hacker can be able to say that I was able to deny service or I was able to interrupt the operations of a government for one day, M-Pesa for one day, and that sort of thing, that's a very that's something that they will claim credit for and really enjoy within their community. And so the one thing that we need to put in context is that because government is such an attractive, place for hackers to operate, it is important that our government is so proactive in making sure that they are ahead of the curve in protecting their spaces from being intruded in this way. But most importantly, I think there's also the value of just having, as citizens, the security of knowing that our government has taken all the measures that are necessary. Because a DDoS attack is today, tomorrow is a data breach, and a data breach is something that is so much more worrisome. So I think the government has a lot to do to reassure us that they have done all that they can do to protect our data, and that Kenyans will hold them accountable if a data breach happens.
All right, thank you, Al, for that. Now coming back to you, Abdullahi, just to respond, connecting it with what Al has just said. Governments, banks, and even other institutions like M-Pesa are among the. You would expect that such systems are among the most secure systems before you even talk about the common mwananchi. So what is it that the hacker or the cyber criminals, what are they looking for in terms of the uniqueness of who their target ought to be so that we be more careful next time? What is it that they are shopping for? Absolutely,
and it's sending a message, social or political, whatever it is. If a hacker who needed some money could have gone beyond and he had the skills and he actually get to the money of the bank or get to the money of M-Pesa, from our assessment, whoever was doing that did not have that skill set to go that beyond.
Maybe they just didn't want to go there just yet.
No. I'm coming to that. I'm not in any way minimizing what happened.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you from a technological perspective what true hackers today are capable of doing, and what happened now are absolutely two different spectrums.
Okay.
The skill set for DOS existed in 1996. Distribution of that existed a little bit after 2 years after that. My point is the technologies that mitigate that also existed in that. So coming to the point, what can be done is, and most of the financial services sectors and people with money do that, is create a very simple DOS protection mechanism, which is a technology that protects you. If I might use an analogy of maybe a shopping center for denial of service, you are the till and you have maybe one of the supermarkets, and a rowdy youth, a group of youth just come and go to the front and they just want maybe buy one or two things or maybe buy nothing else. They have denied everybody else who was in the queue the service. That's what this was, if I might just use that example. It is they just denied the service, but they didn't go beyond, try to take things from the shop or get to the money in the till. That's the analogy I'm trying to create. There's a difference between denying a service and not having enough power to go beyond that. That is a difference. So environmentalists have done that. The famous WikiLeaks. There are different reasons why people do data breach and a DDoS. This was barely making a message, and there's a debate whether this was actually external or internal. That's a different conversation altogether. But it's also very commendable, and I can tell you that as a professional, it is very commendable how fast these solutions to mitigate and stop those attacks were put in place. Generally, as an IT project is a lengthy project. How fast this was detected and then a mitigation, and we're back online, is a very, very commendable. And I have to say that. What needs to be done is now do a thorough assessment of the entire ecosystem, both in the private sector and in the government, to see, yes, this denial of service, this rudimentary, very old technique was used. What else can be used against us, and can we confirm that we are okay?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that up. And
Yes.
Cyril, just to add on to what he has said, so what do we do? Because from the last I checked, over 5,000 services are currently being offered via the eCitizen platform. These were paralyzed for hours. You'd imagine the impact and the magnitude of the problem that might have been created that day. What do we do to create a robust, secure system in the future? What is it that it will take for us to really have a system that is secure, that cannot undergo any form of cyber attack, if that is even a reality, or I'm dreaming too big?
Sure.
You tell me.
Yeah, first of all, I think I'll concur with Abdullahi here. As much as we didn't have availability of systems for a while, it's quite commendable that you were actually able to get to the bottom of it and stop it. We were lucky that there was no data breach involved in this, at least from the reports we have so far in that particular front. But let's talk about security here. And I'm probably going to talk about security, probably from a denial of service attack. That's just about preparation. We have clear systems that can stop this. We have really good companies out there that you can easily contract to be able to have that sort of mitigation process for you at any given front. But now the question here is, what happens in case people are targeting your data in that particular front? Of course, whenever you're working with databases right now, security is a significant layer. I know a lot of companies go that extra step to really vet their security, right? They have a clear cybersecurity layer. But there's one thing I'd probably suggest to most critical infrastructure out there that we're not doing enough locally, is the fact that even if you have the best team in the world, you still need to have an open bounty system. We've seen Google do the open bounty system, where we know they're extremely good technologists, but they still have a bounty system saying, if you're able to detect any way to hack through our system, we're willing to pay you. And by that, they're able to, detect all these other gaps they might have left out when they're building their cybersecurity infrastructure and all that. So at the end of the day, it's the 21st century now. That sort of way of working with the open source community, right, to be able to improve your systems is very, very key, not just from a development perspective, but even from a security perspective. So that's one thing that financial institutions should do more, because you'd be so surprised. These attacks happen very often. It's just that there's no clear incentive. If your bank was hacked yesterday, they have no clear incentive to report that they were hacked, right? It creates a scare, right, in that sort of front. But if banks just have their own bounty system that's private, they're able to detect this sort of systems, all these people who are hacking to go ahead, steal $1 million from a bank account or so, will now have a clear reward structure, because you'll end up losing way more in case you have a full-on attack in that particular front. So I will go ahead and say, I think we have clear structures for cybersecurity protection. Going the extra layer and making it open source is actually a really good step for most companies. The only final layer I'd add onto this is, at times, when you have critical things such as elections, probably financing, you probably need to go an extra layer for protection. I know today we've heard about distributed denial of service, where you're using a lot of computers to share this. Probably when it comes down to protection of things such as election, we also need to think about distributed databases. What comes to mind here is a blockchain. When you have a single point of failure, which is one database that everyone is trying to hack, it's very easy for people to go ahead and infringe on that. When you're talking about 1,000 different databases with the same data replicated, then all of a sudden, you don't just have to hack one system that you've tried to secure. You have to hack it 1,000 different times, and that there is an extra layer of security. So critical infrastructure, let's say election records, land registries, financial institutions need to think about this as an extra measure.
Yeah, going the extra mile to protect your data. Let's talk about the common mwananchi now. And Brensil, I want you to take us through some of the risk factors, the circumstances under which we expose ourselves for cyber attacks. What are the things we do wrong? The basics that concern you, the things you've seen, that just show a total lack of, is it cyber, you use the term cyber hygiene?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Okay, I think I'll use one that I've seen a lot of, specifically banks adopt, where I think it's part of where you're called and asked, can you give me your PIN? What is your ID? There's a lot of such scams that have been
Social engineering,
yeah, that have been going on. So I think the first one that I would say is just providing information. Critical information or sensitive information, either through phones or in discussions, sharing of passwords. So you have a Gmail account or you have whatever account, sharing of those passwords, your eCitizen PIN, your KRA PIN. So I think that is the first thing that I've seen, sharing of sensitive information. I think the other one that is also tied to low awareness is when you look at when you're, sorry, my point has actually escaped me, but it basically has to do with low awareness within the population, such that if I'm giving you a document to sign, you don't really understand what's within that document, so you end up providing a lot more sensitive information. When you're in a cyber cafe, for example, and you're browsing, and the browser tells you it's not secure, but you still go ahead and say, continue browsing. So it's the little things that we take for granted, people within the cybersecurity space, like browsing on a browser that is not secure, sending emails, clicking on links, sharing passwords over the phone, writing your password and putting it over your laptop. So they are the small things that tend to really cripple the common mwananchi. Yeah.
Okay. And using obvious passwords like your birthday.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe you can also add on to this.
Absolutely.
Basics, the mistakes that people just make that expose them.
Absolutely. Just, again, it goes back to awareness. And it's actually more critical now that the entire nation is adopting technology for its services. The Wanjiku in the village needs to know that when she's accessing the government services, that she needs to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to protect herself. That sensitization, I think, is what will encourage the government to do. But even the private sector, like Royal Media, I think there's a social responsibility, in my opinion, to educate the populace. The specific private sector organizers like Safaricom, I've seen them do advertisement on how to protect, teaching people how to protect themselves, not sharing their PIN, etc. Given this committee boys problem that we always deal with. And I think there's an improvement from the perspective of awareness. I think a coalition of organizations from the private sector and the government coming together for the sake of our people is important. But the tools exist, the academies exist. There are different ways of teaching people. As basic as just going online, spending 10 minutes just to learn what cybersecurity is and what you can do. Going on YouTube and just learning what cyber hygiene is. Those are the basics. But people in the village consume TV more than they do anything else. So creating that forum and doing more advertisements and telling people, don't do 1, 2, 3, do 4, 5, 6. It's essential.
All right. As you weigh in on this, I just want you to respond to a question that just came in. There is an interesting trend. I know you've interacted with it. Several institutions nowadays have adopted the use of face recognition or even fingerprints as you enter your workstation, maybe just you signing in using your fingerprints or your face recognition, as part of adopting technology. And also there's also this interesting technology, our phones nowadays, we can use our fingerprints or our face recognition just to gain access to these gadgets. Talk to us about whether this is safe and what does our privacy rights also, in context of our privacy rights, where does this fall?
So I think facial recognition EDC is in the same level as iris data collection, except for one thing. In many of these instances, especially where it's facial recognition on your phone and that sort of thing, these companies are actually a lot more transparent about what they use, how they're collecting that information. and a lot of that information doesn't actually leave your phone. It just goes towards, unlocking your phone and being a security measure for your phone. But it doesn't actually go and, is not placed in a database somewhere for onward use in other ways. But at least they are transparent. And what we are saying here is that if a company is transparent about what it is that they want to do with your data and so on, then by all means let them continue. And it is a useful thing. It will assist innovation and so on. But anytime that you see that there's some subterfuge, there's some deception, I am asking you for data, but without telling you why, then there's a problem. But back to the Mwananchi, you were talking about the common Mwananchi a moment ago, and I wanted to talk about two specific areas that Mwananchi, I think, needs to be very aware of. In Kenya, we have a book that I call the Book of Truth that we find at every security desk, where we have to fill our name, our ID number, our phone number, sometimes our email address, and then your signature. These books are nowadays, there's very many cases where we're hearing that these books are being sold, for by the guards or by somebody, where they allow people to take pictures of your data, and then they can go and use them in other ways. Now, if you put the true information of your ID and you put the true information of your phone number, really I can do anything that I want with that data. I can run away with that data. I can call you and sell you loans. I get a lot of those phone calls nowadays, and I think many of us do. People can call you and try to scam you in many different ways. The other point of failure for many Mwananchi is when they go to the supermarket and at the till, somebody asks for your number. You ask whether you have a rewards card, and then they say, what's the number? And then you tell them 0722000000. The person standing behind you is able to hear you giving that phone number. And I've been that person many times. And what I've done is that I have used that information to go on Truecaller and find out the name of the person who was just given that data. With the name and the email address, I've been able to find out a crazy amount of information about these people. And that's a really major gap that we must fulfill. So I think that we need to find every possible loophole that we can as Mwananchi to protect ourselves from sharing our phone number without knowing how it is going to be protected and how it is going to be used, from sharing our ID number. And the government actually needs to step in here in terms of making sure that there's a different system from that so-called Book of Truth. And those buildings that actually require you to actually leave your ID card with them as you go up into an office, that sort of practice must stop, and we all must, push on this. I think the final thing I would say about this is that we've been having a campaign called Ficha Uchi, where we've been trying to sensitize Kenyans to hide their nakedness, to try and protect themselves. And what is interesting to us is the level of a lack of awareness of even how people use social media, for example. We've seen cases on social media where people take pictures of themselves against their house number or against their workplaces, or they have, outfit of the day at home on outside the gate. Then they basically give us a rundown of what their day looks like as they go on social media. And as they do that publicly, then we're actually able to track this person. And if you have a child involved and that sort of thing, then it becomes even more dangerous. So it is important for Kenyans to actually pay a lot of attention and protect such information from being too public.
Al, you're really scaring us this morning. So you don't want us to earn points at the supermarkets. We can't go
we really have to
online
innovate that system.
Be posting, we are on holiday, we are doing this, we've cooked this. There are people who are all over social media throughout the day, and I understand your concern where it's coming from. This is my latest car. We take pictures, just showing the number plates of our cars without, even caring or even knowing. Sometimes it happens just without even knowing or planning. But thank you, Al, for raising those very pertinent issues. I want us to talk about the future, what the future looks like, and what sort of way forward we need to come up with going forward. And before we get to that point, I just want us to run through an interesting, I would say, initiative by a group of young people, because courtesy of the demand for coding skills in Kenya, and we have one of them in studio with us. So courtesy of the demand for coding skills in Kenya, this demand has increased significantly, with a good number of parents and guardians now enrolling their children in its IT courses. This demand has seen the courses cost an arm and a leg, barring many from accessing the skills. But as Edward Schwer tells us, a pair of young IT experts have created Chapter Global, a platform offering income share agreements and flexible fee options to low-income students looking to pursue coding skills. Have a look.
Equity. Are you members of a chama and are running a business? Achieve your business goals through Pamoja Group loan of up to 10 million shillings. No collateral required. You will also receive free financial and entrepreneurship training. Visit any Equity Bank branch to apply.
Jessica Ranja and Cyril Michino were IT students in 2020 when they struggled to access funding for their computer programming and coding course. Together, they founded Chapter Global to help IT students access coding skills without financial struggles.
Chapter Global is a deferred tuition payment service provider. We started off by offering income share agreements, which is basically allowing someone to learn first, then pay later once they're earning, hence the name income share. But over time and with experience in the market, we've now gone ahead and expanded the options. So not just income share agreements, but also now flexible payments. We're seeing that the economy is not doing really too well, and some of the parents might be struggling to even afford the upfront fees for their students. So how can you break it down and assist schools to be able to do that? So basically, Chapter sits interfaces students and schools.
To make Chapter Global successful, they started off with a coding school where they offered the courses and funded interested students. Today, Chapter Global has diversified and is now working with some of the established coding schools in the country.
We didn't just want to build the infrastructure and use it within our own school. Our mission is to support as many other young Jessies and Cyrils out there in Kenya and in Africa. So how do we do this? Doing it within your own school is not as scalable as forming a company that interfaces with so many other schools and you're able to support way more students that way. A student comes in, depending on the agreement we have with the school, they'll pay a certain upfront amount. So a school will say, we want our students to pay 20%. Then the remaining amount, they'll study, graduate, then pay back only when they're earning. So the beauty about an income share agreement is there's no debt element. If you as a student took up an income share agreement and you're not earning, then you don't pay back anything.
To achieve this, Chapter Global has an online platform where interested students enroll and directly get access to coding schools of their choice. When the deal is struck, the venture takes a payment of the remaining balance.
We try to get schools that have high performance at least, and we started off with top coding schools. In terms of schools, we'll definitely have to vet your numbers in terms of graduate outcomes and employment outcomes, because now we want to partner with schools with quite high performances. Once the enrollments come in, now we have a structure where now those students are directed to our portal. You're given a sort of like a magic link, comes into our portal, sign up, then now we start with the vetting process. So you'll just be asked to submit your educational documents, maybe tell us about your experience and also your financial statements, your credit profile and your M-Pesa statements. Then we communicate the feedback to you and to the school.
So far, Chapter Global is working with 2 top coding schools in Kenya. The venture aims to diversify into other disciplines to help as many needy students as possible.
We've worked with 3 schools so far, but currently we just have 2 still within the coding school space. We have Moringa School and Zindua School. We've seen so many young guys come in and even get employment before they even graduate. And this is someone who could not have afforded that particular program. In terms of contracts offered, I think we've done about 200 so far, and you can see the limited number of schools we have.
Jesse hopes that more ventures will take up this model and help Kenyan and indeed African youth to access skill-based courses for a better future.
Currently, we are the only ones in Kenya. purely service-based company offering, flexible payments and income share agreements to schools. In Africa, I think we have two other players. There's one in Rwanda and another one in South Africa. But the beauty is we're now even looking at ways we can partner and offer IECs together as a group.
All right, thank you, Chair, for that. Made in Kenya, a segment that you have here on Citizen TV to appreciate local innovations and local expertise. And we have one of the co-founders of Chapter Global with us in studio, Cyril Chege. Just before we sample feedback, just, in summary, what was the inspiration of this and what are we looking at in terms of the future for the young people who are targeted for this program?
Okay, I think it's worth noting that as co-founders, we've experienced this problem ourselves. Personally, I know going to school in Italy, it wasn't easy to afford the fees as compared to European counterparts who had a lot of bank loans available to them. In Kenya, it's very hard to get educational loan if you're not going to a local university. We are seeing budget limits in that particular front. Banks don't necessarily give educational loans to people who are extremely young because you don't have a significant credit profile. And you see, when you're in such a conundrum, you have to start looking for all other possibilities. And that's when you start seeing where the world research is going in regards to financing. You hear things about flexible payments or income share agreements. So you could say for both of us, it's been personal experiences and being in very tough positions that kind of gets you to do that. But what you need to understand when you experience a problem is ask yourself, what do you have influence over? What's your sphere of influence? In that front, we were both developers, so we could easily teach people to code and then get paid once they're earning. And then you're able to see that there's significant demand for such financing. You can't really scale it as an institution. Probably since we had already built the architecture to offer this internally, how can we push it over to other schools to also use it? The only difference now is, unlike a typical bank loan where you're only relying on credit profiles, when you're investing in young people who are trying to upskill into a particular thing using Learn Now, Pay Later, you also have to vet what is their likelihood to get a job at the end of the day. How good is the school in regards to outcomes? A lot of schools locally are charging exorbitant fees, but with very low outcomes all through. So having a vetting mechanism to understand the success rate of a school is very, very key. And it means like your brilliance and the output of a school is the core collateral and not just your credit profile.
All right. And all the best with that. Yeah, and just appreciating what young people are doing. I know we'll be talking about more on what needs to be done then to ensure that we have the skills that we need and also we are safe when interacting with the cyberspace. But I want to sample some of the views that you're sharing with us online on Twitter. We welcomed you to share with us your thoughts on the conversation we're having this morning at Citizen TV Kenya, at Safin_Achieng. The hashtag is Daybreak. And we have there Kipto Ruto, you say, in the digital realm, data is the new currency. Understanding data privacy isn't just for techies. It's crucial for everyone safeguarding your sensitive info. It is like fortifying your firewall against potential breaches. Kenyans should stay informed, stay secure. Thank you, Kipruto. We have Engineer Lazaro. You're saying we are facing a lot of challenges with shared Wi-Fi. Another big challenge is government response that infringe our privacy and freedoms. And then we have one, Brian Chemwa. The government should invest in advanced threat detection systems and conduct regular security audits and updates for their systems. It is sad that e-citizen services were attacked, making us lose faith in our ICT experts and the entire ministry. And we have Babu Michael, KE, you say, when ICTCS say that they didn't lose during the cyber attack that happened previously, I think he's being economical with the truth. When bank transactions and other monetary institutions are halted for even a minute, there must be losses. We have Sir Nixon Ndugire. Nixon Gire, you say, now that they have escaped with our iris data, how can we counter that? I now fear eye opticians who use similar gadgets to test our eyes, that they can sneak in the Worldcoin business. All right. Nixon there. We have Honorable Lillian Sioi. We cannot ban children from participating in cyberspace. That will limit opportunities to access information and knowledge. However, children accessing the internet face many risks and being abused. Law enforcement has to get serious about cybercrime like Worldcoin. We have SAWE, the recent DDoS attack highlighted vulnerabilities, underscoring the urgent need to the urgent need for us to bolster defenses. And of course, Kenya can mitigate risks, fortify its digital landscape, and pave the way for secure technological progress. We have Godi Barasa, where you say our State Department of ICT's preparedness was put to test during the Worldcoin enlisting and the attempted attack on our cyberspace. The government should ensure that the youth can access opportunities with minimum risks involved. Thank you, Godi. So this is just some of the views that you've shared with us this morning. Thank you for those, and of course, continue interacting with us on our social media spaces. We still welcome your feedback on this very important conversation. And allow me to wrap this conversation up by just giving my panel a chance to give us a final round of remarks on the way forward on what needs to be done for us to ensure that we have a robust, cyberspace that has the safety measures that it requires. Let me begin with you, Abdullahi.
Thank you. So there's in two fronts. The immediate is adoption of global frameworks, and I always preach that. The last 2-3 years, the cyber world has shifted from the pandemics to this Ukraine war. If there's a philosophy called the zero trust. If that was adopted, highly unlikely that the e-citizen or the breach, or not the breach, the attacks that happened, that could not have happened. There are global frameworks that have been put in place, at least even in the last 3 years, that have been forefront. So we will encourage that to be adopted across the domains, private and public sector. The other one is we need to improve our education system, specifically in the technology field. What the students that we produce and the money they pay and the value and the readiness they have are not commensurate. So I know there's a lot of education reforms happening, but on the technology front, I think there has to be skill set to market readiness. I've seen Open University be launched the other day. Hopefully that creates a differentiator, not just for convenience of learning, but actually learning real world relevant material. What Cyril and Tim are doing goes to even help to bridge that gap. On the cyber security, we have an academy ourselves, and Cyril can speak about that after this show. And we are all in our East and Central African business. We build our own talent. We take people from the universities and bridge the cyber security gaps, and then take them and until we are sure enough that we can trust them with the customers.
All right.
So that level of education needs to be done, but it needs to be minimized how much people need to be retrained in the real world. They may as well use the hard-earned money in their education to make sure that they get value for that education.
All right, Brenso?
Yes.
Yeah, I think for me, what I'd say is that whenever there's an incident, especially a cyber incident, and you're sitting in a boardroom, there's usually a lot of pressure and tension and point blaming. Mm-hmm. So what I would say is that the safest computer is the one that you buy and you don't put it on the internet, you bury it. That is the safest. As long as you're exposing your systems online, there is a risk. That is a cyber risk. And I think the best we can do is to put in the right strategies, the right technologies to minimize the impact of these risks. And having said that, I think the additional thing that I would add is that we need to be prepared in terms of even conducting crisis simulation. So for institutions specifically, conduct a crisis simulation, try out a denial of service, try out compromise of your bank accounts. So basically try out different scenarios before the actual attack happens, so that you're better prepared and you better build your defenses before then an external attacker comes in to compromise your confidentiality, integrity, and availability of your systems.
All right, thank you, Brensil. And Cyril, I'm also just reminded of a study by the World Economic Forum. Actually, it's a projection of how the future of jobs will look like in 2027. And I'm concerned whether we have the skills that we will need to remain relevant at that time. And I have a feeling it has already started infiltrating in our job market already. As you merge what needs to be done to create a safe space in the cyberspace, and also what skills just tips on what skills may be needed for us to stay relevant in,
For sure.
in this future we are looking at.
Yes, I think Bransel and Abdullahi have really summarized what we need to do to stay safe at any given front. Technology is an enabler. We can't shy away from it. We just need to take up apt protection, both individually or as organizations to do that. Talking about the skills needed for the future world, unfortunately, technology is moving at a very fast pace, at times a bit too fast than what universities can keep up in that regard for curriculum change. And that's why we're seeing vocational training becoming very, very essential, or organizational training taking a step up in that particular front. I can't stress how key it is for every individual, regardless of your career, to start being very apt in regards to technology awareness. If you're a lawyer, you know you're going to work about cases on cybersecurity now. Are you well up to this sort of cybersecurity layers in that sort of front? If you're a doctor, you realize right now you're using data science systems, machine learning to detect things such as tumors, right? Are you apt as a doctor to actually educate yourself in that sort of front? We are happy to be in that space where we are making this available to people, regardless of their background, to be able to access this sort of education. But the sort of key driver has to come internally. Right? It doesn't matter whether you're 55 or whether you're 18. You just need to take the step up, because technology is in each and every single industry, and you always need to upskill based on where the job demand needs are going or where the world is going innovation-wise.
Yeah, and if you're still hiding your head in the sand, who knew that judgments can be offered online? And who knew that actually Open University can become a reality? It was just launched the other day. And a lot that I can cite about what technology is already doing, the reality that we now face. So like my panelists are saying this morning, it is a reality we cannot run away from. So you need to do something to, be relevant. I want to give also Al a chance for your final thoughts on the way forward, because a lot has been said, but then how do we manage to navigate in this very murky terrain that we have all painted this morning? Because we have to, somehow we have to. It is a reality we are all agreeing we can't run away from. What's your parting shot, Al?
I think, number one, I'd like to say thank you very much for bringing us together. And I've really enjoyed listening to the information about Chapter Global. Cyril, I hope you reach out offline so that we can get together. On this issue, I think the first thing that we all need to do is to understand that security starts with me. It starts at a personal level. And so I think one of the things that we have to do is to make sure our passwords are complex enough, and then our birth dates, our activities online are safe and secure for ourselves, and most importantly, that we educate ourselves on what the dangers and the measures we can take are. The biggest thing that I can say to Kenyans is please take effort to hide your nakedness. Yani jaribu sana ufiche uchi. Ficha uchi wako online, ficha uchi wako katika mazingira yote ambayo unatembea, because it is extremely important for us to protect our data. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Al Kaga, the Executive Director, Open Institute, coming to us live from Malindi. And of course, we were having a sit down in studio with Bransel Kaimba, a cybersecurity manager at PwC, Abdullahi Sheikh, the CEO of Convergence, and Cyril Chege, the co-founder of Chapter Global. Thank you, gentlemen and lady, for creating time for us this morning. Of course, a conversation that we cannot conclude in one sitting. We'll be picking it up in the near future. But for now, we want to shift gears a little bit on the second part. Do stay with us. We will be talking about infertility and to break down even the stigma that comes with it, availability of services and expertise in our country for fertility services. And of course, we'll be talking about a lot that you need to know when it comes to that journey of trying to be a parent. I'll be having a panel of two gentlemen and a lady who will be sharing with us their insights on what the subject is all about. A sensitive subject that for some time has been treated as a hush-hush topic in our society. Today we break that silence and tell you more that you need to know. Thank you for watching. Do stay with us. We are coming back after the break.